I am pretty upset about the ending. I love Stranger Things. I've loved it since season 1. I was actually hyperfixating on it when it all went to shit, so that was really nice for me. I want to talk about the bigotry of Stranger Things specifically because there's some things here that I've never seen people mention. I know a lot of people are upset about a lot of things, the plot holes, just the terrible writing, potential ChatGPT use in the plot. I want to go through sexism, racism, homophobia in Stranger Things season 5. I want to unpack the bigotry in the writing of season 5 specifically and how it impacts the rest of the show. I want to talk about Elle because this pisses me off. Elle is a very major focus of most of the show. In the first season, she is essentially a co-protagonist to Mike. She comes from a lab where she was abused her whole life, and she finally discovers friendship and what life can be like outside of a lab, and discovers autonomy and freedom and love. And she is such an important character because throughout the show, she is sort of our lens of innocence, where she is experiencing the world for the first time as this girl who's come out of this terrible place. In season 5, she isn't a big focus. In fact, she's barely there, frankly. She's always on her own or with Hopper in the Upside Down until the last 2 episodes. And we don't get to explore any of her friendships that we've previously built on. The way that she was shelved in season 5 reads incredibly misogynistic to me because she was sort of replaced by Will. They sort of started acting like Will and Mike had been the main characters from day dot, but that's not true. If you look at season 1, I mean, Will was barely even there. He was gone. That was the point. And while I was glad that a queer male got the lead in a show, which is really good for Netflix to have a queer lead, it wasn't Stranger Things. Elle in season 5, okay, this pisses me off. Her arc is about whether or not she is going to kill herself.
The whole episode has to be building towards 11 is gonna kill herself.
Like, if we're trying to sell it as she's gonna kill herself, and then she killed herself.
Yeah.
I think that it's like, is she still deciding?
I have no words. I want to reiterate that her arc should have been about overcoming the abuse that you've suffered to find freedom and autonomy, but instead, it became, if you can't see another way out, just yourself. Her arc is ridiculous. The fact that her and Callie are the only deaths in season 5 is deeply unfair. Will and Henry get a lot of screen time in season 5, which is on one hand great. Again, we've got a queer character as the main focus of the season. But on the other hand, we lose the magic that was the previous seasons. With Elle moving out from Hawkins, going to California, and then experiencing the bullying there where she wants to fit in, but she realizes she never really will fit in because she isn't normal and she grew up somewhere that shaped her as a person in a way that she can't escape from. That beautiful narrative is completely lost because she becomes essentially just a plot point for Mike. Even in her final moments, we're not viewing her death as something that she's deciding to do. We're viewing her death through Mike's eyes and the fantasy that he has created about her. In season 4, we explore how, even though she loves Mike, he's never understood her completely. There's a very important and time-consuming arc where Mike realizes that he's been a bad boyfriend, and the end of the show is that he finally says, "I love you" to her.
Mike, don't stop. Okay, you're the heart. Okay, remember that. You're the heart.
And I love you.
Which is what she's been asking him to do from the beginning. And then at the very end of the episode...
Did she talk to you at all? Not much. I mean, a little bit.
It's ambiguous whether they're still together at all. And that was great, I thought, going into season 5, because I thought Elle deserves to be able to be independent and be separate to Mike. He was her first love when she didn't even really know what a friend was, let alone what a boyfriend was. It makes sense to me that they might not be together in season 5. It was ambiguous through season 5 too. I thought when the first volume came out that they weren't together, that there was no romantic chemistry. I just thought they were friends. And then in the very final scene in Mike's fantasy of her, they finally do. They finally say, "I love you." It doesn't make any sense because it wasn't deserved. There was no scenes leading up to it. I'm so sorry, Elle, because I love her. She was written to just be this fantasy that Mike created, his superhero or whatever. Even though last season we literally acknowledged that she isn't a superhero, she's a person who wants to be seen as a person. And the fact that it had to be on her and Carly to die when they were the two abused little girls who deserved freedom more than anyone else in this show, it's disgusting. I'm going to talk more about Carly, but I'm going to talk about that in a separate section of the video because there's other things that need to be mentioned with her character. She's one of the few people of color in the show, and the reactions to her character were disgusting. She was also treated really terribly by the writing. That is also misogyny. It's also racism. Carly was also abused the same way Elle was. And I thought that when they brought her back, it would be a lovely way to explore their shared trauma. So in the final season, having her come in and essentially just be pressure for Elle to kill herself, it was really disappointing. And frankly, an opportunity missed. I mean, that's her sister. They could have explored that. They didn't. People were talking about how Millie's reaction to her character's ending mirrored that of Game of Thrones, where they had a similar problem where in the finale, the female character was just decimated by the writing. If anyone was going to die, I would have literally preferred anybody but Elle. Literally anyone. I think Hopper should have died in season 3. He should have stayed dead. I think Steve could have died when he fell off the tower or whatever. Or Dustin died because Steve died and they said they would die together. Literally anyone, just not the one person that from the beginning we were just rooting for her to have a life. I want to talk about Joyce. Joyce, in the first season, is incredibly important to the narrative. She's Will's mother. She's the only one who actually knows what's going on. No one listens to her because she's this crazy, grieving woman. And she ends up being right about 100% of the time. Throughout the first 3 seasons, I'd even say, she kind of works out what's going on ahead of everyone else. She's very, very smart. She's not taken seriously because she's a woman. And that's a really interesting narrative to explore, right? Well, in season 5, she's barely there.
I am in, I think, Stranger Things 5. I haven't seen it.
And on top of that, she's ridiculed for being useless.
That's it. So, what do you think? Any ideas, thoughts? There's no bad ideas.
I mean, I think it's a great plan. It's a great plan, right? Hey.
They're all sort of going, yeah, good plan, Joyce. She's always doing this. No, she's not. Have we forgotten what she did in season 1? She recognized her son's breathing through the phone. She realized he was in an alternate dimension. Before that, it was even a concept that anyone had. She communicated with him through the lights, which, by the way, is a plot hole now, but she did it. And she was ready with that axe. She was going to protect her babies. And the fact that they forgot that, plus forgot that Winona Ryder was kind of the only reason they made the first season in the first place, it's ridiculous. I mean, did you not watch your show? It seems like you didn't watch your show, because she's not stupid. She's very smart, and she was shelved because she doesn't matter. Sorry, we want to spend more time on Steve because he's really hot. Max and Elle. Max, in season 3, in season 2, she teaches Elle that Elle is not just her boyfriend. Elle is her own person who can have her own experiences, who can have her own opinions and fashion sense, and she doesn't have to stay with Mike. She can break up with him if she wants.
But friends don't lie. Yeah, well, boyfriends lie.
She can do whatever she wants. She's a person. Max is the one who preaches independence and nonconformity. We get these scenes that we're all probably familiar with, where Mike is blatantly misunderstanding Elle. He doesn't understand her, and he's frankly being sexist.
Yeah, because women act on emotion and not logic.
Precisely. It's a totally different species.
They say we are species. What? Emotion, not logic. What?
And Max is there as this strong, independent woman who has a good sense of self, who comes in and says, no, you don't have to listen to that, and you don't have to be with him if he doesn't make you happy. Max and Elle's friendship is beautiful. It's one of my favorite parts of the earlier seasons. It's such a good depiction of female friendship, which is very rarely depicted well in movies and TV. In season 5, we get maybe 2 seconds of them interacting. Max wakes up from a coma that she's been in for a year, after Elle literally revived her dead heart because she loved her so much. And we get 2 seconds of, oh, hi, you're back. So nice to see you. And then like 1 look at the end when Elle is killing herself. And that is it. There is nothing. They get shelved too. The female friendship that was so important to this crucial character, Elle, it's just gone. It doesn't exist. It's just really disappointing that that was a choice that they made, because it feels like they decided to focus more on men. And they did. They did decide to focus more on men. I'm just going to go as far as to say that. They did. There's something I want to talk about as well here that I don't think I've seen many people point out, which is Nancy Wheeler. She has a really well-written arc in the earlier seasons about sexism and how she wants to be viewed as equal to her male counterparts, and she isn't. She's trying to become a journalist and she's trying to be taken seriously, and nobody will because she's a woman and she's, a girl from the suburbs. It shapes Nancy as a character. She goes from this suburbia dream, this girl who was on track to just do the same thing as everyone else. She was going to get good grades, go to college, marry someone, have kids. That was her path. And then the more that she explores this sort of outcast life that comes with bonding with the group, she realizes that she doesn't want that. She wants her own path. And then in the epilogue, she kind of looks exactly like her mother, who is unfortunately stuck in a pretty bad marriage, who can't achieve any of her dreams. At least they had her drop out of college and do something a bit radical. I don't know. She kind of just gets written off as the same character that she always was at the very end. She looks so much like her mother, and Mike looks so much like his father, and both of those facts are kind of heartbreaking. It's a little harder to talk about, but it's something that I've been thinking about for a really long time, and that is the sexual assault metaphor that Stranger Things used. They've been using this metaphor for a very long time. From the beginning, the tentacle over the mouth pumping eggs into someone, Will essentially being impregnated by Vecna or the Mind Flayer. It's a pretty disgusting and visceral thing, and it's a very clear allegory for sexual assault. We don't explore this metaphor or sexual trauma at all between anyone but Billy and Heather. I think Billy is probably the scariest villain in Stranger Things. I mean, Dacre did an incredible job, but that scene where he has Heather hogtied and he's leaning over her and he says,
"Don't be afraid. It'll be over soon. Just stay very still."
I mean, it's clearly an allegory for... And this is terrifying, especially as a woman watching this. That genuinely is chilling to watch. But then in season 5, there's an implication that this is a trauma that Will may have had to deal with previously. We don't explore it at all. No, that's not okay. We can easily explore that between a random lady who's being killed and scary man. That's normal. We say that all the time in TV, but we can't explore it between two men. Because it shouldn't be okay. It shouldn't be okay. It should be taken very seriously, in fact. The fact that he uses a line that's so clearly an allegory for sexual assault. It was a missed trick not going into that trauma with Will in the 5th season. It made that whole allegory redundant by not exploring that. There was no reason for it. Vecna is just kind of a creep. That's kind of it. There's no real explanation. I mean, there's no explanation for anything in this show. But there is no explanation for that specifically, that line, and why he uses it so often, and why it's okay to explore the scariness of that line between a woman and a man, but not between Will and Vecna. I think the main thing with misogyny in Stranger Things is that they just miss so many opportunities to explore the women's perspectives, and they just don't. Elle becomes Mike's girlfriend at the very end of her life. She is just Mike's girlfriend. And even at the very end, they sort of imply that that scene in her mind didn't happen, meaning our final glimpse of Elle and what she wants and what she thinks and what she's saying is all because Mike is daydreaming about her, fantasizing that she pressed her forehead to his and says, "I love you." Oh, we didn't even get her talking to Will or Jonathan or Joyce, her family that she lived with for a year. We didn't get any of that. I need to calm down. It's just really disappointing. God forbid Elle beats Vecna and is able to just live a life, a normal life, without powers maybe, but a normal life. No 3 waterfalls, just a normal-ass apartment, a job maybe. That's all she wants. She just wants to be normal. I want to talk about Carly because I find this really disturbing. I really liked her episode in the earlier seasons. I know that isn't a popular take, but I really liked it as an alternative person. I think it was really cool to see a punk alt group in the 80s. I think that was super important to explore in a show about misfits and outcasts. She was a good representation of how someone who knows they can't fit in can deal with that, where she knew she was never going to be accepted into society. So she forms this group of like-minded outcasts and they kind of fight back against the oppressors. It's really inspiring. And in season 5, they kill them all off.
They found me. Found my friends. I picked them.
shave her hair, give her a different accent, and decimate her character. She's written like a different person. She's literally got no personality left. She was this incredible punk rebel who assassinates abusers, and now she's just this girl that wants Elle to kill herself, basically. There's nothing more to her, and it's really upsetting because she actually was really strong. Even though people didn't like that episode, she was a strong character. There's something to be said about the way they write her, where she's fairly unlikable or people don't trust her because she acts very shifty. Not only is she another abused little girl, she's also a person of color. She's, I think, the only Indian character in the whole show. She has no real place in the narrative except for to make Elle die. So why would we like her or respect her character or be invested in her character arc or sympathize with her when she's holding a gun to Hopper's head for some goddamn reason? She had this potential that went entirely wasted, again, with the female characters and their potential. They didn't know who she was anymore when they wrote it in season 5, and it's so clear to me that they didn't watch their own show because I think they don't remember her personality or anything as one of the few non-white characters. That's just, I mean, come on, it's so easy to not do that. It's so easy to just watch the episode and write her well. She didn't even get a moment with Hopper or anyone who was sympathetic to her. It's so weird because Hopper's whole thing is, no, Elle, you can't die because you deserve to live because you've been through this terrible trauma. And then he turns around and says, you can die though because I don't know you. They've both been through the same trauma, as if he'd be that unsympathetic to this girl who's just the same as Jane. She's the same as Elle. She also went through all that trauma. She was also abused by Papa and she got away. And Hopper acting like he doesn't care about her because she's not his daughter. I mean, as if any father who knew Elle's backstory wouldn't sympathize with her. I would like to see a narrative where he takes Carly under his wing and the sisters get to be sisters. But no, we don't get that. She doesn't deserve that, apparently. There's a couple of characters I want to talk about here. I think I haven't seen this talked about as much as the homophobia aspect has been talked about. I love Erica Sinclair, but she so often, in the later seasons especially, falls just into the stereotype of a black woman. And while I adore her, she didn't get nearly enough screen time in season 5. I liked that she got to talk to Mr. Clark, and I liked that we explored that she's kind of a science-y nerd now, because I think that with her and Lucas, that is a type of black character that isn't really depicted that much, like a nerdy black character. But she was barely in the season and then barely in the epilogue. I mean, she set off the confetti cannons and I don't even remember what she did aside from that. And Erica is Lucas's sibling and a really funny character who becomes just kind of a plot point that they can use. They don't explore her character at all. They don't explore her family or her bond with Lucas at all, except for the teasing, ribbing thing that they have together. It's just disappointing because she's one of the very few people of color, again, very few people of color, and she's absolutely sidelined and not viewed as important in the epilogue, even though the epilogue is an hour long. On the topic of Erica, I've seen a lot of people talking about how they thought Tina was going to be black and she was white. There's no reason why she'd have to be either of those. I'd personally assumed that Tina was one of the girls we see in the mall in Starcott in the earlier seasons. The thing that was weird to me was that Tina is from a white Republican family. We've explored the fact that racism exists canonically in Hawkins, and as if she'd be safe in this household that agree with the politics that don't want her to have any rights. It's kind of thoughtless. On that note, wouldn't it have been easy to cast a black girl as Tina? Would have been pretty simple. Check some boxes for Netflix if that's what you care about. They didn't. Give the girl more screen time, please. Okay, I want to talk about Lucas. Lucas is a great character. He doesn't get as much attention as the other characters do, especially in that core 4 group. Lucas is markedly in it less. He gets a lot less screen time than pretty much any of them. His arc is very wrapped up in Max and his love with Max. I think him and Max are a great relationship. They have maybe the healthiest romantic relationship in the whole show, but Max gets an arc outside of Lucas where she gets to escape Henry's mind and teach Holly how to be brave and come to terms with her own trauma and blah, 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 blah. And then she gets Lucas at the end of the day. Lucas is just about trying to save Max. He doesn't have anything else going on for him. His arc is purely about Max. I mean, in the first season, we see that sort of casual microaggression that he experiences, even from Mike when he says that he should be Winston. And he's a black kid in a majority white school in a majority white suburb. Him and Erica both. We see him experience racism and microaggression. And we never really explore how that made him feel or how that impacted him as a character. In season 5, he's become this sort of braver, like tougher version of himself where he just doesn't give a anymore because he wants to save Max. But we don't get to explore him as a person without his girlfriend. The amount of screen time that the others get versus Lucas is not great. He exists to save Max from her coma, essentially, in season 5. Especially in season 1, it was about Lucas as a person and how he was this brave kid who was like very like rough and tumble and wanted to, you know, shoot monsters and be this like warrior. And as soon as Max showed up, it was just about him and Max. Lucas also experiences racism at the hands of Billy, who is Max's brother, which I think we forget about sometimes. Billy is one of the most outwardly racist parts of the show, and he also gets some of the most empathy of any of the antagonists. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of times that I see people going, oh, it wasn't his fault he was abused as a child. No, he's a racist and sexist and misogynistic and homophobic. He wasn't a good person. He is a product of his father, but he is not a good person and he doesn't deserve to be hardened for any of the things that he did because he experienced trauma. The way he treats Lucas is appalling and we never really see the consequences of that. And Billy was terrible to him and at one point almost killed him. We see very few other people of color in the show. Basically, it's a show set in the 80s, which is where racism was pretty rampant. And they show that racism is rampant, as opposed to other shows where set in a different era, they just won't include racism or homophobia or sexism because it's kind of nicer to have an alternate reality where that doesn't exist. But in a show where they have made that canon, they've said this is what happens, this is the behavior here, you've kind of got to remember that that's going to hurt someone at some point. It's going to be important to them. His arc doesn't have to be about racism. His arc could be about anything. It could be about being brave or being scared or like learning how to love someone, but there is no real arc. It's just about saving Max. We're going to buckle up because I'm going to talk about homophobia. I want to start just by briefly talking about Eddie. It's not as big of a problem. It's just something I've been kind of tossing up recently. As a queer person, when season 4 came out, especially volume 1 of season 4, I thought, oh my God, we've got a new queer character. He had the hanky in his back pocket. I was like, he's flagging. He is this punk, like rebel metalhead who preaches nonconformity, talks about how conformity is killing the kid. His whole thing is like, I am weird and I'm different and that's great. And everyone should embrace their weirdness and their differences. It's a really good theme for a character to be exploring in a show about outcasts and misfits and freaks. I want to bring up specifically the word freak. He's Eddie the Freak Munson, you know, it's sort of tossed around a lot. The word freak is a lot of the time in the 80s especially synonymous with queer or, you know, harsher terms for that. It's a form of homophobia. When they blatantly call this character the freak, you kind of assume, especially as a queer person, you sort of assume that that means he is also a queer person. Obviously, that never actually got explored because they kill him off in the most stupid and pointless deaths of all time. I just wanted to bring it up because they have this show about freaks and outcasts, and they introduce this character with a very different perspective. He's this full, confident rebel, and he gets up on a table and says,
it's forced conformity. That's what's killing the kids!
He's like, we should all be weird, we should all be freaks, you should embrace your freakness. Dustin and Mike and Lucas are all very inspired by that. And then it kind of doesn't go anywhere. The actors have talked about how they thought that he impacted their characters and their personalities.
Working with somebody like that, you can't help but see new things in your own character, I guess.
There's no real evidence of that in the later seasons. It's just with Dustin. We don't see Mike or Lucas being at all sad about his death, even though they were also in that D&D group and also very much looked up to him. And especially Mike, his whole aesthetic in season 4 was supposed to be inspired by Eddie.
It's interesting because he's definitely influenced by Eddie, so we added a little darkness to his clothes. He's wearing black jeans this season. He's also wearing Converse, which it feels like something that he thought Eddie would probably wear.
It's if you wanted to explore this rebelness, then don't have a character in his final moments just be like, I'm gonna go sacrifice myself to these bats and die stupidly just to make Dustin sad, when you could have instead had him help other characters, inspire other characters to be their real freak selves and change how people view the world, especially people like Steve Harrington, who are still coming to terms with not being the popular golden boy anymore. Similarly to how the show is very happy to be explicit about racism in the 80s, it's very happy to be explicit about homophobia. A lot of cruel words are used and thrown around. And for some reason, the show can't say the word gay in a positive way. Will is a beautifully written queer character, if you forget about season 5. His arc, I was really hoping, would just go anywhere that wasn't where it went.
I don't like girls. And I had this crush on someone, even though I know they're not like me. But then I realized he's just my Tammy. And by Tammy, I mean it was never about him. It was about me. And I thought I was finally okay with myself.
He became the age-old example of the perfect queer person to a Republican or to a right-wing person. It's a queer person who accepts that they aren't going to find love and comes to terms with that within themselves. Queer people shouldn't have to do that. Queer people deserve to love just as much as straight people do. And I am going to touch on Byla briefly. If you don't ship Byla, that's totally fine. I think the problem with Byla is that because Mike wasn't queer, he just kind of was an asshole to Elle's character, which adds to what I was saying earlier about her character kind of being shelved and diminished into Mike's girlfriend. It makes him seem homophobic. He barely talks to Will or even touches him after he comes out as gay, and his reaction during the coming out scene is not there. And then that scene...
But what matters is that you're still here, and you still think we can be friends.
Friends? No thanks. Best friends.
Apparently Noah Schnapp had to beg them to put that in. They weren't going to have Mike talk to Will at all after he came out. That's literally insane. That's Mike's best friend who has had this 4-season-long arc of coming to terms with how he's in love with his best friend who's probably straight. And they were going to have that resolve with Will going, by the way, these 20 random people, I'm gay. And then Mike was never going to talk to him again. Like, are you kidding me? What was any of that about? What was the point of, it's not my fault you don't like girls?
It's not my fault you don't like girls.
Or the painting in season 4. Will, I guess, is never going to tell Mike that that was from him and not Elle. Mike's going to spend the rest of his life thinking that his dead girlfriend made this painting or commissioned this painting that was actually just a love letter from his queer friend. I'm so normal about this. If you're going to use homophobia, if you're going to depict it, if you're going to have characters struggle with it, you need to be able to say the word gay in a positive way. I don't like girls doesn't cut it. It does not cut it. And they know how to write a good coming out scene because Robin's coming out scene was beautiful. And I thought it was so good at the time because I was like, it's subtle, but not in a way that people wouldn't realize what she meant. They knew that she was a lesbian. But now in retrospect, I'm like, well, maybe they should have made it more obvious because they never used the word lesbian either. They never use those words in a positive manner. They only use them as insults. They can't say those words. It's cowardly. It's cowardly, frankly. All of the other characters, or pretty much all the other characters, get paired up with a love interest at some point. Even Argyle got a love interest. He was written out of the narrative. Didn't exist. Renata, he went back to California and smoked, I guess. But he got a love interest for some goddamn reason. I mean, what was that about? Why did we spend time on that? I don't know, but he got one. Will Byers gets a love interest, and he's the only one who doesn't really get a happy ending. Nancy and Jonathan break up, but they had their relationship. She's had two relationships. Will instead gets to come to terms with his queerness and realize that his decades-long crush on this guy was just a queer delusion that he had to come to terms with and accept that sometimes things don't work out, your straight friend is still straight, and you might never find love. And there's nothing wrong with an epilogue boyfriend. It's disappointing, it's lazy writing. In that scene, that's literally Mike's fantasy of what Will have in the future. It's not real. It's just Mike going, maybe one day you'll find love. Somewhere far away from here in a gay bar. Robin, my beloved, my wife, the love of my life. She has a very, very sweet arc with Vicky, where in season 4 you think it's kind of a Will situation where she's got the same situation, unrequited, straight friend, crush, whatever. Turns out she's not straight. She likes boobies.
Vicky likes boobies!
But we don't see any of the actual coming out or the getting together, and that's disappointing in and of itself. But then having it be completely gone or they break up off screen in the epilogue.
To nothing ever keeping us apart.
Including overbearing significant others.
Why? It wouldn't have taken any more time to just have Vicky be in that final scene. I don't understand why they had to break them up. The Duffers have this statement, this incredibly pointless statement where they said, well, it doesn't always work out. My crushes didn't work out for me in high school. Well, I'm sorry that you get no bitches, but Robin, Buckley, and Vicky were in love, and you couldn't have taken 2 seconds to have them just be in love at the ending. God forbid your queer characters end up happy. Not only that, but as an alternative person who is a bit more grunge, they feminized Robin in a way that, I mean, you know, if that was what she decided to do after 18 months, not even that long, fine, that's fine. But she's dressing very traditional, female, and she doesn't have a girlfriend anymore. And I think those two things combined really, they didn't make me feel very good about it. She was giving it's just a phase. On top of that, they mention not once, but twice that Robin and Vicky want to go have a date at Enzo's. They have the same trope that Joyce and Hopper use where they say at the end of all this, we're going to get our date, we're going to go to Enzo's and we're going to be happy together. And Joyce and Hopper get that. They get to celebrate their marriage, which by the way, wasn't legal for gay people at the time. Robin and Vicky don't get their Enzo's date. No, they break up. Because high school crushes, they never work out. So, you know, like why would they be together? I have something to say that may be a little controversial. And this is coming from an ADHDer myself. Robin has ADHD. She is, you know, potentially autistic. It's implied, both of those things are implied. Through the earlier seasons, she does struggle with tone and she struggles with her tendency to like kind of info dump on people when she is trying to hold back and her inability to read social cues. Kind of the reason that Nancy and her have like a bumpy sort of start to their friendship. And then in season 5, that gets ramped up to like 1,000. She becomes this like kooky comic character who slides down the stairs in a very tense moment where that's not really called for and makes very inappropriate jokes, which, by the way, this joke...
It's too big. It's not going to fit.
Steve hears that all the time and he goes in anyway, don't you, Steve?
What the hell's wrong with you?
Did we forget that she is not out to any of these people? They're obviously going to assume that she is talking about experience that she has experienced firsthand. They think she's teasing Steve about how he has sex with her. It's such an inappropriate joke to make for someone who isn't out. And not to mention the clip from the documentary where Maya literally reminds the Duffers that she isn't out with Vicky to Lucas or Max, that she wants to play the scene in a whisper because they'd written it verbatim like they were just going to talk about their relationship in front of these people that they're not out to. She was so sidelined. She's literally just another plot point for a man's arc, and the man happens to be Will, and I love Will, so that's okay, but it's, you know, she still is a female character that should be written as her own person and not just Steve's bestie and Will's inspiration.
It all just kind of accrued like a snowball rolling down a hill until it was obvious.
How obvious?
Let's say the snowball became an avalanche.
There's also this pointless use of the snowball avalanche metaphor. Sorry, I'm a little sick, so my voice is a bit weird. But the snowball avalanche metaphor, she gives Will hope that Mike might love him back. And in that moment, you think, oh my God, maybe he does have hope that Mike loves him back. No, he doesn't. He literally overnight decides that he doesn't. On Mike and Will, I know that Byler is kind of a topic that people dislike. There's a lot of homophobia around it. I think it's queerbait, and I think it's queerbait because they never denied it. Most other shows would be like, oh, you're being silly. Enid and Wednesday are clearly not into each other. But they'd never denied this one. In fact, they called Byler's noise at a certain point. They called their queer audience who were asking for representation noise that they had to drown out while they were writing. And they promised us that things would pay off. They said the painting would pay off. They said that their relationship would pay off. The deep love Mike feels for Will would pay off. It didn't. It wasn't in the show at all. They lied to us. They led us on. And that is what queerbait is. It's when you essentially just string along your queer audience for views. And I feel so bad for all of the younger teenagers who have experienced queerbaiting for the first time in real time. I'm 21, so I've had a little bit more experience than some with being queerbaited, and a lot of, older shows that I've watched that I knew going into them that I'd be queerbaited. I just finished watching House. And that hurt just as much as I thought it was going to hurt, but at least I knew it wasn't going to happen. I feel so bad for all the queer teenagers who saw themselves in Mike, who thought, oh, I'm like him. I am also very closeted because nobody would accept me in my family or in my town. And then they realized at the very end that Mike isn't who they thought he was. He's just an asshole. If he was gay, it would have explained season 4 a million times better. I mean, he treated Elle like shit for no reason. I don't really know why. Frankly, when I look back at it now, like knowing what I know, I don't know why they had that plot arc in there. Like, what even was that about? Phyla is a classic example of queerbait. And unfortunately, a lot of you have probably experienced this for the first time. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, because it always hurts. And it teaches queer people that we don't deserve to see ourselves represented, which is disgusting and untrue. And if you're feeling that, you should watch Heated Rivalry. Look, the bigotry is rampant in Stranger Things, and most of it could have been avoided had they just written the final season a little better and had all of those arcs amount to something. Had they written their female characters right, had they maybe included a few more female or queer writers on the team, had they maybe taken 3 extra years to make the season and not just written it with ChatGPT. But they didn't do any of that. Because they didn't, their show is unfortunately now preaching messages that are diminishing and dangerous for outcasts, which is the target audience, the outcasts and freaks. We're being taught that we have to accept rejection and live for our partners and just close up beneath bigotry and just kind of withstand it instead of fighting back. I want to talk about this in relation to It. If you haven't seen it, I'm just going to put a timestamp here. You can skip ahead. But I want to talk about It, chapter 1 and 2. It is very similar to Stranger Things in that it has a supernatural threat that haunts you in your dreams, and it explores a closeted queer man who at the end comes to terms with his one-sided unrequited love. You know, it's unrequited only if you don't ship them, but I ship them personally. But in the canon, unrequited. And the threat preys on fear and hatred and anger. It preys on all of these negative things. In fact, the second movie opens with a hate crime, a gay hate crime. Then the whole movie never does anything to mitigate that sort of violence, because even though It is dead, they never actually explore whether It was the one making people bigots or whether people are just bigots. And at the end of it, the closeted queer character comes to terms with the fact that he is a closeted queer character who probably won't ever tell anyone about his love for his best friend Eddie. Stranger Things does the same thing. It's like, here's this character who preys on our fears and traumas. Oh, let's defeat him and have it not change the way that anyone thinks about anything. I mean, all the bigotry, the hatred, the fear, the whole town at a certain point was rallying together to murder these teenagers just because they played D&D. None of that was changed by killing Vecna. They didn't solve anything in It, and they didn't solve anything in Stranger Things. And I think that that is the main thing here, is that if you're going to include bigotry in a narrative about misfits and people who are treated as other or different or freaks, you have to have the message at the end be, we can fight this, we can change. But that message was not really in it. It wasn't important. The message, I don't even know what the message of season 5 would be, but it certainly wasn't that. It was just kind of like, if we get really good with a gun, we can kill Big Monster. The main thing to me is that they have so many missed opportunities. They could have told a story that taught us that queer people and people of color and women, anyone who's discriminated against, can eventually be accepted, rise up and change the world. What Eddie Munson was saying in his first scene, he was banding these freaks together, and he was teaching them to be their freaky selves and to be weird and different and to not care what people thought. And then that goes nowhere, and we never revisit that message. I'm just really pissed. I'm so pissed, in fact, that I'm making my first YouTube video. If you want to see me talk about things, if you want to see me rant about more stuff, let me know. I don't know if I'm interesting at all, but I'm going to try my best. I think that I could fix all of this, frankly. That's what my pride is telling me. I think if I spent 6 months with a group of writers, we could fix all of it. Obviously, I can't do that because I have a job, but I think I could. And the fact that a budget of millions and millions of dollars couldn't do it, it's lazy. And the Duffer Brothers should be ashamed of themselves. At least they are trying to be allies, because if they were openly hateful, that would have been much worse. But they could have done so much better. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry that this was such an angry rant. It's different from what I planned to do. Yeah, leave a comment down below, subscribe if you'd like, and I'll see you soon.